Hi, I'm Anushka,
Hi, I'm Nida.
and this is Girl Up GMA. Welcome back to our Sheroes podcast. We have someone very special with us here today.
So, with us here today, we have Dr. Pavitraa Shankar. She is currently an intern at Lady Hardinge Medical College, which is also the institute where she is pursuing her MBBS. Apart from that, she's a very famous YouTuber who, gives us an insight into her life as a medical student in India. And she has about 25.4 thousand subscribers. And as a cherry on the top, she's also spoken at a TEDx conference. Welcome, Dr. Pavitraa. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nida, for having me here. I'm glad that you guys, contacted me.
We're really glad to talk to you. And obviously, being a doctor during this time is really, it's such an important job. You're really on the front lines and you're the new soldiers of today's generation. So definitely it is a challenging time to be a doctor. So we wanted to ask you, what inspired you to go down this path? I mean, it has always been a very difficult career choice to make for many, but what inspired you to go down here?
Okay, so actually, in my case, it was actually a literal event. When I was like really young, I saw this incident happening in front of my eyes where one kid who belonged to a poor socioeconomic background, and he came for with an emergency, and he was not given the required treatment only because his parents could not pay for it, and that kind of got stuck in my mind even as a 3-year-old. And I think when I grew and as I saw the realm of the health industry and all of that, I just grew in stronger and stronger, that the only way I could change something in this was to be directly a part of it. And I guess that was it. I mean, that one moment, and I just built up on that. And yeah, that's been pretty constant for me. As far as it being a difficult career choice, you just have to weigh the pros and cons. And I guess for me, I realized that even though it was a difficult career choice, I could make a lot more out of this, and could actually contribute to making the whole situation even if a tad bit better. So yeah, that was the point where I realized I have to go for it.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
one incident can change so much in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
Since we're in the middle of a pandemic, and like for us in the UAE, the condition has improved a lot, and the government has opened up offices and public places, of course, with the required restrictions. But people in India, a lot of the things, lockdown has been lifted. But there are restrictions. However, in many parts of the country, people are not following the restrictions like they should. So, in your opinion, to what extent could this harm the improving condition, just because people are not being, they're not being sensitive? They think that, okay, if we're, not in the danger zone, so if we're not below 6 years old, and if we're not aged people, we don't have to care. So how is that affecting the condition in India?
Yeah, see, that's a very good question. And to be honest, with the changing scenario, because as we are in the middle of a pandemic, but our curves are going up and down, so there are being constant changes. If you would have asked me this question maybe 2 months back, I would have said that complacency is just, like the death of all, and that would just be, obviously it will be like बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाएंगे cases, and we'll reach a plateau. Now we'll reach a peak. The point is now, along with the increasing cases, which is obviously a problem, we also have increasing innate immunity towards the COVID-19 virus. Keeping that in mind, and obviously opening of all the offices and other public places is kind of a necessity also, because of the whole economic situation of our country. So keeping that in mind, and keeping the fact in mind that we're also developing immunity, I would not say that, the complacency that people are, going out without masks and not maintaining proper social hygiene would be okay. It is not okay, obviously, but then at the end of the day, um, we are at a situation right now where we can handle, the kind of unlock which has happened recently. We can handle. Am I audible? Yeah, okay. So we can handle the unlock, but only with, yes, of course, we have to follow social distancing. We have to still follow, masks and hand hygiene and personal hygiene, and more screening, and all that is required. So if we talk about people not maintaining all these rules, basic rules, yes, we will ultimately end up having a lot of cases. But if talking about the risk of how much mortality could be there, how much morbidity, that is how many people would be diseased, we are thankfully now at a better position to tackle that situation, because immunity, and we now will have those kind of resources. So yes, complacency is obviously not the wisest thing to do right now, because right now if people actually followed all these rules, we could be at the good end of the pandemic in faster time, in lesser time. However, again, we are at a better position to tackle it. So yeah, a little bit here and there which everybody is doing is kind of acceptable, but not advisable. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think there's always been a bit of lack of information about this. The government is putting out information, but then you see people doing the opposite. And then you feel that, okay, it's been 3 months, I should be able to go out, but that fear is always there. So I think it's really important to hear from medical experts and people in that field to know what exactly is the situation, what is acceptable and what is not.
I'll just add something here. I read this meme, I guess, a few days back, which said that the pandemic isn't over just because you're bored, and that is so true. I mean, that is important to realize, that even if it's been 3 months, 4 months, if you do not need to go out of your houses, please stay in your houses. All those rules need to be followed. But again, what what I'm saying today might not be relevant tomorrow, because we might just have like a burst of cases. We don't know what's coming our way, right? But talking about the situation today, yes, all the rules are to be followed. Complacency is not advisable, but a tad bit of it still acceptable as compared to what was the situation 2 months back. Yeah.
I think a lot of misinformation has also been going around. If you've heard, if we're talking about memes, my mom graduated from WhatsApp University. Memes about, oh, if you drink this, then you become immune to COVID-19. So getting the answers from a medical professional really gives us the surety.
Yeah. There are two schools of thought. One is totally incorrect and one is correct. So one is that, how WhatsApp and how Instagram puts it, that if you have like ginger tea or if you have green tea, COVID-19 would be cured, etc., etc. That is false, because no naturopathy or not even a medication as of now, nothing is a short treatment for COVID-19 as of now. But talking about these things being complementary to the treatment, complementary to developing immunity, obviously natural things like ginger tea, having green veggies and having fruits and other vegetables and having a healthy diet, all of that eventually basically adds up to the immunity, which helps us fighting in the fight against coronavirus. So obviously we have a better immunity, you have better chances of even if you get an infection, it would not affect you as badly as when you did, if you did not. So the point is, having all these naturopathies and all these natural products obviously adds up to the immunity, and that's why at this point of time it is the most important that we actually listen to our mothers and actually have the stuff which they ask us to have. So yeah, that's that. Baki uske alawa, if anybody claims, if you were to tell me that I don't know, green tea, pillow, and COVID-19 would be cured, that is not true. But yes, they always help in developing that immunity. So that's where they work. Yeah.
Yes, totally. So, as you mentioned yourself when you were describing the situation, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and the situation's already drastically different from what it was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So, clearly, this entire pandemic has been a very unpredictable sort of experience for everyone involved, and a very scary experience. It has been scary for the common man and for the general public, but it has been a lot more frightening for those who are seeing it face to face. That would be our doctors and our medical staff.
Yeah.
So what would you say about your
Yeah.
experience with dealing with this pandemic?
Yeah. Actually, I was not involved in the direct facilities of COVID-19, but I obviously have people who were there, posted there, and who have faced it. So I can tell you firsthand experiences of those people. Actually, in the beginning, if we talk about the starting of the pandemic, we were not prepared. And, with the shortage of masks, kits, gloves, even gloves, things like gloves, they were not kind of available. And in the beginning, it was the difficulty of products and infrastructure. We didn't have space. For example, in my hospital, there was no COVID-19 ward because we never had patients of COVID-19. So we ended up isolating them in an area jहाँ पे सिर्फ 4 beds हैं, and what were the other patients we don't know. Then when over the past 3 months, I think we have gradually grown to develop an infrastructure. Like before, we did not have more than 4 beds. Now in at least in my facility, there are like 120 beds alone for the COVID-19 patients. And abhi, the point is that they are all full, and we are like understaffed, and we have an overload of patients. Working in the facilities obviously is difficult because once I got myself screened for COVID-19, and I was there for 9, and I noticed that those people, all the doctors who were doing the screening for COVID-19, sitting in those PPE kits itself is such a challenge, because it's like I don't know how many degrees outside, and then you're there, and there's not much facilities of like an air conditioner and all of that. Not expecting that, obviously, and it's difficult to stay in those things for like 6 hours now. And especially now when the patient loads or even screening is increasing. Like before, when I got myself screened in around March, when I went, there were like 6 people in the line, and now there would be 30. So almost like 5 times the patient load is there. In the wards where there are COVID-19 treatment happening, obviously there is a bit of chaos. We are kind of understaffed, because the most important, the most ridiculous part of it is that we need trained staff there. I, being an intern, I'm not trained. If for example, somebody gets into a cardiac arrest, obviously I can give CPR, but I can't be of much more help than that. I don't know how to switch on a ventilator. So you need very trained staff in the COVID-19 facility. And with that, obviously the trained staff is only limited. So when they work in the COVID-19 facility, then they get infected. So that understaffing is just leading to more understaffing, and whoever is posted there is just getting overworked. It is difficult. The situation is grim, and the point is we are getting maxed out at almost all the hospitals. I guess yesterday only I saw like 3 or 4 relatives of COVID-19 patients coming to us, and we had to tell them that okay, we have no beds, and you have to go somewhere else. And it's a sad situation. So yeah, we are better off as compared to what we were yesterday. But are we fully equipped if we have a second wave? I can't say that. I really can't say that, at least for whatever hospitals I have seen or I have heard of. And it's difficult. But yeah, as of now, we're doing fine. We can work with this situation. But if there was a second wave, I'm not sure we would be able to handle it too well.
I think it is important that everyone takes their necessary precautions just in order to prevent a second wave.
Yeah. See, second wave, epidemiologically speaking, mostly occurs. And second wave does not mean that, if the peak of this wave was at 100, it would reach 100. It could be 60, it could be 120. So we have to take all those possibilities. Now, it depends on all of us, together. We healthcare professionals and others, all other staffs, all other people. as to how much you take your own precautions, because all you can do in COVID-19 is actually protect yourself. So if you talk about PPE kits, what are they? They are personal protective equipments. You're basically protecting yourself. For example, if I were to wear a PPE kit, or if maybe you were to walk around wearing a PPE kit, you're only protecting yourself. Even if you have gloves, they could be dirty, but you're not getting infected. Anybody else could. So how do I protect myself from you is protection of myself. So all that we have is that one thing, which is personal protection. If we are to do it in a good way, if we are successful in doing that, we can easily make that second wave even at 40 and not at 100 like the first wave that is still going on.
That was very insightful. Thank you so much. And I
Thank you.
would like to take this opportunity to wish you a very happy Doctor's Day, which is coming up on the 1st of June.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
that will
Thank
be when
you.
this interview will be going up. So honestly,
Okay.
doctors are really the heroes of today, and so we couldn't think of a better occasion to upload this video on than Doctors Day itself. And in our student body, in our grade right now, there are a lot of aspiring medical students themselves. Nida herself is one of them. So is there any
Nice.
advice you'd like to give to them, or anything that you'd like to share, especially after this entire experience that you've been through, that being a doctor is not an easy job, things like this can happen?
Yeah. See, without a pandemic or with a pandemic, the one golden advice for any profession, but I think especially for this profession, is if you really, really have that interest, is only when you'll be able to, get through it. I say this because you might be talented, you might be hardworking, you might be patient, but if you do not have that interest, how long would that hard work, talent, or patience last? And this profession takes a lot. So if you have the passion for it, if you have the interest, that is only when you should go for it. B, for people who are just about to enter medical college, do not go with any conceived notions. Like, I cannot tell you what your experience would be like even after getting past MBBS, because mine would be way different than what you experience. So it's a very subjective experience. And actually, you know what? If you once you have decided you have to go for it, uh, you can always. We have this notion that once you're a doctor, you're a doctor. For example, if you were an engineer, if you were a BTech, you're not expected to only pursue that. You could branch out. You could be like a musician. You could be a comedian. Most of the stand-up comedians today were engineers at one point of time. But that kind of, mindset that we go into, as that if you're a doctor once, it's like a one-time decision. Even if you hate yourself, I'm not saying that you will, but if you do, there's always a way out. So you should not take anything as an option. But when you enter something and that if you did not like it and you still have an outlet, I think you still that pressure of getting through all of this gets a little less. So yeah, and the rest though you will experience with time. There's hardly much I can tell you. There's so much I can tell you, but then it's 5.5 years. What all can I talk about in like 10 minutes? But yeah, one golden rule, if you have the passion only, then you should go for it. And if not, there are plenty of things. We are not 3 idiots wale log na, ab to ho gaya. We have a lot of opportunities. Yeah. And one thing before you say anything, you just mentioned about how doctors and healthcare professionals were important in the whole pandemic. I would just like to also recognize other people who were not just healthcare professionals but served an equally important job, from police walas to all the drivers. So throughout the pandemic, and even now, because we are in the middle of the pandemic still, we had like bus drivers dropping us home, getting us to the facility. We could have been potentially infected, therefore they could have been potentially infected, but they were there all throughout. Police walas were there all throughout. There were the food delivery walas. There were so many other people. And it's so important to realize that it's collectively as a team, what can we do as just doctors or nurses or other people or technicians without other people. So yeah, it is a collective effort of everybody, even government officials taking those important decisions. It is so important to realize that a situation like this can only be tackled, and even people who are just there sitting at home and complying to the rules of social distancing, it is so important to recognize that it's everybody's efforts which has actually made us quite successful in handling the pandemic pretty well.
Absolutely. I think this has really taught us the importance of essential services. They've always
Yeah.
been sort of overlooked, but there are people out there who are doing work every day that we simply cannot survive without. And this has definitely
Yeah.
been, I think, a group effort to combat the pandemic. It's what everyone has been saying, that we all have to work together, even if we are apart. So
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
So thank you so much for joining us today. It meant a lot for us that you took time out of your busy schedule and you joined us for this podcast.
I'd like to say thank you so much for being so welcoming to our proposal to come and talk to us. I mean, I think you were equally excited, showed from your emails and your correspondence.
Thank you so much. And actually, I was excited. When I got the email, I called up my friend and was like, these are these bunch of 12th class wale bache, only 12th class wale bache who are doing all this. And then I just reflected on myself in 12th standard and how I could not even handle my studies, and how you girls were doing all this. And I was pretty amazed by the kind of work you guys are putting in. So congratulations, and I hope that you keep doing this because it's so important. You should pursue this, whenever possible, always. So yeah, I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.